Did you already see the message over there?
It just pop up something. It
Oh, okay,
says
perfect.
by
I
attending
think,
this meeting you consent to being included. Okay, yeah.
yeah, okay, perfect. Thank you, Alejandro. Thanks for getting this with us and talk a little bit more about you. First of all, I want to start with reading you the informed consent so you can are agree with everything that we talk about it. But basically, you are invited to participate in a whole team assignment for our course in authentic leadership. The assignment is exploring authentic leadership and moral stories that leaders experience over the course of their careers. So we are inviting you to participate in this research, and this participation means that you give comment to the student team and to use the answers that you give us. So this is strictly confidentiality. This data is being collected for academic researches only, and all data will be stored confidentiality and accessibly only for student team and also the academic staff. Your name and affiliation may be anonymous if you wish. And finally, your participation in this research is voluntary and you may withdraw your participation at any time and without a reason. So are we okay?
Yep, I'm
Okay.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So again, thank you for your time and being here. I want to start with you telling us a little bit more about you, your role, your experience. Can you help us with
Yeah,
that?
sure. So, well, my name is Alejandro Ríos. I am originally from Colombia, and for probably the past 2.5 or maybe 3 years, I've been living in Mexico City. And from my academic background has been on the side of finance and accounting, and as well as my work experience. So I've been working probably by around 15 years, and for the past 11 years, I've been in working in finance in UPS, United Parcel Service. And yeah, currently I work in Mexico, kind of the district headquarters for this region, Latin America. And I just completed the executive MBA in Holt as well.
Congratulations. Thanks you,
Thank
Alejandro.
you.
And can you tell us a little bit more about what you do at your current job?
Yeah, sure. So I am the director of finance for the district. So we have operations across the whole geography of Latin America, which includes Mexico, Central and South America, as well as the Caribbean. And my role is pretty much leading the finance function, um, dealing with different shared services that we have, and also outsource services that we have. But most of the time, my role is more on the finance planning and analysis, as well as supporting the execution of the strategy for the business unit that I work for.
Okay, thank you. Excellent. So I'm going to start with the first question. And can you describe how your personal ethics and moral perspectives influence your decisions and actions in your current role as a director of finance?
Sure. So that's something that I will say is not related only to my role as leading one function in this company. It's part of who I am, or how I describe myself, and its integrity. For me, that's the foundation of everything, and probably that has been the foundation that my parents gave me since I was a little one. But I realize that every day this value adds more importance, and especially dealing with people and managing a group in different countries with different cultures. Every single time that you take a decision, that should be your foundation. So that's something that I am really proud of having that as my main value. And also I always try to lead by example to my team, like in every decision, making emphasis that there are things that are non-negotiable. And luckily for me, I work for a company where compliance and doing the right thing is also one of the pillars. So that's why I have stayed there for more of a decade. And yeah, I think that will be the main one. There are other values that probably complement this value, but that's the foundation.
Thank you, thank you. And are there any specific situations that you maybe are thinking that you find yourself reflecting on these principles like more deeply in integrity, lead by example?
Yeah. So when I first assumed this job a couple of years ago, we were in the middle of a project, what we call transformation, which basically meant to right size the structure of our function and move pretty much all of the processes to shared services. Uh, Shared services that are owned by UPS in this example, but also to other like third parties. Um, when I assumed the role, I realized that some countries were already transitioning, but the people that was impacted were not notified about what was going to happen. And the first thing that I did, because in other projects in the past, because some leader and mentor emphasized on the fact that we had to treat the people well, because that's what we do. And being in the middle of a transition where it's obvious that people's jobs are going to be impacted, what we have to do at the very least is to tell them what is going to happen. So that was not an easy process, because, as I said, the project, it was ongoing, already started. But I had to prepare a business case. I had to convince a lot of people, like different levels of the organization, because my main objective was, okay, we need to be transparent in the way that we tell these people that most likely they are going to lose their job. We try to complement that message with, let's say, a strategy for engagement. And that was to offer like an extra bonus so they could stay for the time of the transition. But being completely honest and telling them, yes, most likely your job is going to be impacted. But in order to at least compensate you because of that situation, on top of the legal severance, we will give you this. um, we saw a tremendous change in the way that people was dealing with the trainings and the knowledge transfer, because of course the people at least say, okay, well, I know what is going to happen in 3 or 6 months. I can start looking for now. This company is trying to incentivize me for the transition, at least for a couple of months. So that proved success. That was something that paid out. Sometimes in other situations, it's not that easy. And working in this side of the company, confidentiality is important as well. And that's where sometimes we get in conflict. Like, okay, I want to be transparent. I want to treat people well, but at the same time, I cannot disclose everything that is being discussed. So yeah, that's a challenge.
Yeah, it seemed like a real challenge, but it's good to see also that there are good companies out there that also treat well people. Like sometimes
Mhm.
it comes without a previous notice. Yeah, and it takes
Yeah.
everyone by surprise. So thank you for sharing that. Do you think this moment will was some moment that challenged your career, or any other moment that uh, that 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 experience shaped your values or your moral, or do you think you have another example of a point?
Maybe a similar one, but it's a very specific case that I had last year, because it was one of my direct reports. It was one of my managers. And we were under tremendous pressure for right-sizing the structure, especially for the management team. And it was a very difficult conversation because that person reached out to me and specifically asked if he was going to be impacted. I knew that he will be eventually be impacted, but that's something that you cannot say that, like, yeah, you're going to get fired in 1 month. You just can't do that. So it was very challenging because I had to carefully think about each and every single word that I was going to tell him. So my answer and my approach was to say, okay, I cannot guarantee you or anybody in this organization that they are going to keep their jobs. I mean, I'm not even sure that my job is something that I will have for sure. I can tell you that there are projects or ideas that we are testing out or we are evaluating. But what I can tell you is that if that happens, we will let you know in advance. Um, and I am really conscious about that because in past experiences in other projects with different leaderships, the ones that took those decisions, I really saw the impact of just getting rid of people in both sides. Like I cannot imagine like serving to a company for 20 years and then you just get fired, or the impact that termination will have for the organization. So in both ways, I think that's something that we should always strive for, like transparency. Um, in this particular case, I don't know if it was influenced by that decision or not, but he ended up finding a better opportunity, another job in another company. We ended up reducing that position. So yeah, probably the ending was, let's say, happy. But since the state of the business has been really challenging, especially last year, that was one of the, I will say, pivotal times because of my career, because I probably never had to take those hard or difficult decisions before. The good thing is that I've learned, and I have every time that I test this like openness and transparency, every single time I realize that that's the right thing to do.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Alejandro. So do you think that, I mean, I don't think that that time specifically your values and morals were tested, because like you had already your answer and how to approach it. But do you think maybe in another example that your values were tested, like, am I doing the right thing? Is this correct?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
how to
Well,
sorry,
it,
and just to
go ahead.
complete, and how to balance that decision, like your moral values, but also with your company, as you already mentioned, right? It's difficult to navigate between.
Yeah, well, on this one, maybe I won't be able to disclose the full details because it's kind of a current situation. But high level, what I can tell you is that in these organizations that are big corporations, usually we have this matrix with different lines of reporting. I have two direct bosses. And sometimes I have found myself struggling with the way that one of my upper leadership say, okay, we need to say this and report this number. But the other side say, no, you have to tell this story because that's what is happening. It's extremely difficult because in that case, my own integrity is being tested. Like my role as a finance professional is to report whatever the number is. The number is the number. I am not going to, disguise anything whatsoever. Um, but sometimes managing the expectations of leaders, especially high level leaders, could have tremendous consequences in the way that, you know, people is treated, or the decisions that could be taken. So yeah, I have found myself in a little bit of a struggle when I have to tell the story, and that connects with simple things like the way that you present a slide, the way that you create a chart, the way that you could eventually. I don't want to get into too technical, but you present a trend, you can adjust the axis of the chart, and the story could look completely different. I have been in that situation where somebody is telling me, okay, adjust this because that's the story we want to tell. And I was like, yeah, I understand. We also need to say the positive things, but also the reality. So what I have done, being open and try to reconcile both words. It's not an easy task. It's extremely difficult. And eventually it will get to a point where the reality will come to the surface. So if your credibility is on the table, the sooner the better. So sometimes you will have to uh, speak louder, even if it is your direct manager, and you need to make your point. Sometimes you can't, but at least you will. You. I don't have like a perfect answer, but you need to find ways to at least document what you are seeing, and be transparent that this is the risk, this is the reality, or this is a scenario that is possible. And if the upper leadership is not willing to tell the story, well, that's on them. But at least you fulfilled your duty that you are telling that person and the team that things are not going well. So yeah, that's what I have recently being tested in terms of what should I do.
Wow,
And yeah,
wow.
it's
I
difficult.
can imagine. Again, thanks for telling us about that experiences. And I think that sometimes you win some battles and others, like maybe not in that precise moment, but at some point, like as you mentioned, the truth is
Mhm.
going to come to the surface. So thank you. And just two final questions. Uh, the first one will be like, how did you cultivate trust and transparency within your team and organization? I mean, you talked a little bit more about that previously, but like in your team, like,
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question because um, at this point I can be completely honest with everybody. And 2 years ago, I if you asked me 2 years ago, my answer will be completely different in terms of how important trust or relationship are when you are driving business or doing business or taking decisions. It was only in one time I used to have a different a manager, a direct report, and we also had an assessment, a third party assessment about your leadership style, your strengths, your weaknesses, maybe. And one of the exercise was to score like maybe 10 or 12 items in terms of which was more important and which was less important, of course in a business setting. So there was different things like I don't know, the business expertise or the conceptual strategy or taking decision on times, and one of those items was trust and relationship. So the exercise was that I was supposed to score those items, and my boss will do the same, and then you will compare like, oh, why this difference? I put trust and relationship probably in the fifth place, and my boss put it on the first place. And I had the chance to talk to him to say, okay, I am surprised because I mean, I've always been aware that we are dealing with people, but I didn't think that at your level, that was the most important thing. And he said, yes, I am here because I have developed relationships and people trust me. And for me, that was like I don't know, eye-opening, groundbreaking. For me, that's a before and after that conversation. So that was like when I started to thinking, okay, I need to cultivate trust and relationships. Sometimes it's not that easy. But to your question, how do I cultivate that with my team? I will say you have to be authentic and you have to be honest, because this is real. It's not like, okay, I just want to pretend to be your friend just because I need a favor. No, you need to be honest and genuine in the way that you approach to your people. So based on that assessment, that was extremely helpful for me at that time because I was recently promoted. So that helped me a lot. And I started to realize that, yeah, I need to be more approachable. Sometimes we are in an office setting where stress levels are too high, but sometimes it's also good to just pause and ask your peer, like, how was your weekend? And not only with your peers, also with your teams. Also that connect with the concept of bringing your whole self to work. That's actually another thing that I've learned in the MBA, in the first authentic leadership courses, because I used to put like a separation between my personal life and whatever happened outside of the office and the office. And for me, that was like a very straight line. And then I realized, like, why? I mean, I'm not saying that I need to be friends with everybody, but at least bring some of the, the joy and the bad jokes or whatever the case is to the office, because I realized that I was like being like a robot, like it's extremely going to the point, like starting the meeting like ABC. No, sometimes you need to take time to develop that relationship, that trust. And that's what I have tried to implement with my team. And the results are incredible. But again, for me, the key is being authentic. If you are really concerned about somebody that is in your team and it's suffering because of a family situation, you have to be like conscious and empathetic with that situation. And for me, that has been a tremendous learning for a lot of reasons, because I have noticed that when you open, your life, people start to do the same, and they open their lives, and they tell you things that probably you were not expecting. And I think that's important, because at the end of the day, the Brenda that goes to the office is exactly the Brenda that is in her apartment right now. It's exactly the same person. And sometimes, or some days, or some weeks, you might be in a difficult situation because of your personal life, and that for sure is going to impact your job. It's just one Brenda. So for me, that's also something that I try to keep emphasizing. My team, maybe not every day, because it's difficult to handle between the day to day. But I have the chance also to be mentor of other people outside of my function, and I have to, share all of these things that I have learned in the past 2 years. And it's extremely good and surprising and rewarding to see that. I see that people receive that like, oh my gosh, I was not expecting that. And especially because in this position, they only look at you like, oh, this is the finance guy, the bad guy, the staffing reductions, the cost initiatives, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think authenticity, being open, and be genuine in your approach. If you are not interested in knowing anything about that person, in my opinion, it is better not trying to do it. And that's another thing. Maybe if there's no chemistry in both sides, maybe you need to live with that. You cannot be friend with everybody, and that happens a lot in these roles. And well, at the end of the day, it's a matter of navigating through those, uh intricacies or structures that you have inside an organization.
Alejandro, thank you very much for this last answer that was so complete. I was about to ask you another thing, but you already answered it. So thank you very much.
Which question? I'm just curious.
Like, what will be to share a story that resonates with your leadership philosophy?
Okay.
So I think like you already uh, told us like a little bit more like how you think about your team and this main reason to be authentic and genuine. So thank you very much for all your answers. And I'm sure like your team is happy to work with you and
I
you too.
hope so. I hope so. It's no easy, and of course the way that I am talking to you might not be the same that the tone and the way that I am approaching this conversation. But I realize that it's important to have those spaces. So it's kind of funny because during this week I am doing my reviews, like performance reviews, and another thing that I have realized is that when you are providing feedback, it it must come from a place of trust. Uh, there's a lot of techniques on how to approach that. uh, you first of all you need to be like settled, and you cannot be angry when providing feedback, so you need to have a day and a date and an hour where you can just be relaxed. And I have had to move some of those meetings because I say no, I don't think this is a good time for this review. And 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 that's something that has helped me a lot in the way that I've handled especially difficult conversations. You need to be conscious about where and when you should talk about certain things. So yeah, it's interesting to see. I've always loved to participate in these kind of processes or in the mentorship programs, because it's interesting that probably you know a lot of things, but only when you get that question asked to you, you start to connect the dots. So final, tip: just try to replicate that and give back to others whatever you learn, because in that way you will learn a lot about yourself and about your process.
Thank you again. I think like I got tons of insights.
Okay.
This interview will be hard to summarize. Thank you very much. I think like you really give us plenty of examples of how to deal with moral ethics and your values and how you share it with your team and how you also share it with the organization, because I mean, as you mentioned, you've been like 15, 20 years with UPS. So I bet like you feel confident with the values of the company, and that resonates with you too. So thank you, Alejandro. I don't know if you want to add anything just before we close.
No, it's a final comment that I just remember for that assessment is called Hogan. If you ever want to do it, it's unbelievably amazing, and it's self-awareness. I know this is like something that we've heard a lot, but you need to be conscious about who you are, especially in those stressful situations, because there's a terminology in English, and it's like you could derail even in your career. And there's plenty of examples where ego or position or circumstances provide you an idea of how things work and what are you allowed to do, and you will eventually derail. So self-awareness, it's important. It's a big component. Like, okay, I know that I yell, or that I have this trigger with this situation, and I need to be conscious because that that could have consequences, serious consequences. So yeah, self-awareness will be my last comment here.
Thank you, thank you. Like again, you really share with us tons of valuable insights. So thanks again for making this time. We wish you success, like as you've been doing in your career. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop I'm going to stop the recording right now.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, just give me a sec. I'm going to